Imagine one of the greatest teams in baseball history falling from grace. A Chicago White Sox team that once stood on top of the world, only to crumble in a way no one saw coming. But this isn't the White Sox team that claimed victory in 2005. No, we're going way back, to a team filled with legendary players who dominated the game like no other. And what if I told you that this very team, a team destined for greatness, suddenly and mysteriously collapsed? What happened to this unstoppable force? How did they go from certain champions to a team shrouded in scandal? This is a story of betrayal, secret deals, and one of the darkest moments in sports history. Stay tuned as we unravel one of the most shocking stories in baseball. The story of how 8 players from one of the greatest teams in history would forever change the sport. The Chicago White Sox in 1919 were a powerhouse. The team was packed with talent, both on the mound and at the plate. They finished the season with a record of 88 wins and 52 losses, dominating the American League with their sheer skill, grit, and team chemistry. They were not just playing baseball, they were redefining the game. Leading this team of baseball giants was manager Kid Gleason, a man whose fiery personality matched the team's intense will to win. Gleason had assembled a roster filled with future Hall of Fame talent, none more iconic than shoeless Joe Jackson. Jackson was a superstar, and his bat spoke louder than any words. In 1919, Jackson batted an astonishing .351 with 96 RBIs, finishing 4th in the American League. His incredible ability to hit for both power and average made him one of the most feared hitters in baseball. But Joe Jackson wasn't alone in making headlines. On the mound, Eddie Saccott was an ace in every sense of the word. His record? 29 wins, backed by a jaw-dropping 1.82 ERA. Saccott was a workhorse, completing 30 games and tossing 5 shutouts that season. His knuckleball baffled hitters all year long, making him one of the most valuable players in the league. And let's not forget the second ace in their rotation, Claude "Lefty" Williams. Williams was a southpaw with a nasty curveball, winning 23 games that year with a solid 2.64 ERA. The White Sox had a pitching staff that struck fear into the hearts of opposing teams. Their starters were reliable, their bullpen was efficient, and their defense was rock solid. Offensively, they weren't just good, they were stacked. Along with Joe Jackson, the White Sox boasted players like center fielder Happy Felsch, who batted .275 with 86 RBIs and 6 home runs, giving the lineup a solid middle-order punch. Buck Weaver, the team's third baseman, was a defensive genius. He also had a bat to match, hitting .296 and adding 29 doubles to his stat sheet. This combination of offense and defense was rare, making the White Sox nearly unbeatable, making them the total package, a team destined for greatness, as they seemed invincible. But beneath the surface, something much darker was brewing. It wasn't just a team on the verge of greatness, it was a team on the brink of betrayal. Despite their dominance on the field, many of the White Sox players were deeply unhappy. The man responsible for their dissatisfaction? Team owner Charles Comiskey. Comiskey was notoriously tight-fisted. Despite their success, his players were paid far less than they deserved. In an era where baseball owners held all the power, contracts heavily favored the teams, and players had little room to negotiate their worth. Comiskey took full advantage of this imbalance. For example, Eddie Saccott had a clause in his contract that promised him a bonus if he reached 30 wins. Saccott was just 2 wins away from that milestone when Comiskey benched him, deliberately preventing him from claiming the money. That wasn't an isolated incident. Comiskey's stinginess was well known throughout the league. Even after clinching the pennant, the players were treated with disrespect. For example, instead of rewarding the team with new uniforms, Comiskey made them launder their own. While the White Sox were making history on the field, off the field they felt cheated and betrayed. These players weren't just frustrated, they were desperate. Many were living paycheck to paycheck. even as they achieved remarkable feats in baseball. Their growing resentment toward Comiskey made them vulnerable, and where there's desperation, there's opportunity. Enter the gamblers. Chick Gandil, the White Sox's first baseman, was the one to capitalize on that frustration. Gandil, fed up with his paltry salary, saw a way out, a chance to make the money he thought he deserved. He had connections with the underworld of gambling, and he reached out to Arnold Rothstein, one of the most notorious gamblers in America. Rothstein, a man known for his criminal enterprises and connections, saw this as the perfect opportunity to make a fortune. He was willing to bankroll the entire operation, funding what would become one of the biggest betting schemes in sports history. But Gandil couldn't do it alone. He needed key players, star players, to make the fix work. Gandil approached pitcher Eddie Cicotte first. Cicotte, still bitter over being cheated out of his bonus, agreed to join the scheme. Then Gandil went after shoeless Joe Jackson, Swede Risberg, and Lefty Williams. All were promised a cut of the $100,000. Split among them, it would be a life-changing sum of money. The plan was simple: lose the series to the Cincinnati Reds, a team that was considered the underdog. Cicotte and Williams would deliberately throw bad pitches while fielders like Jackson and Happy Felsch would accidentally fumble easy plays. The fix was on, and the gamblers were ready to cash in. When the 1919 World Series began, it didn't take long for those in the know to see that something wasn't right. Eddie Cicotte, the ace pitcher who had dominated the regular season, hit the first batter he faced in Game 1. That was the signal. The fix was on. Throughout the series, the signs of sabotage became painfully clear. Cicotte and Lefty Williams, two of the best pitchers in the game, suddenly struggled on the mound. Cicotte, who had been nearly unhittable during the season, gave up hits and runs at crucial moments. Williams, too, faltered in key games, allowing the Reds to score when it mattered most. But it wasn't just the pitching that was suspicious. Fielders like Joe Jackson and Happy Felsch, who had been reliable all year, made uncharacteristic errors in the outfield. Routine fly balls were dropped. Easy grounders slipped through their gloves. The White Sox, who had been a well-oiled machine all season, now looked disjointed and disinterested. The Cincinnati Reds took full advantage of the White Sox's poor play. Led by players like Ed Rausch, the Reds capitalized on every mistake. Game after game, the once mighty White Sox stumbled, handing the Reds easy victories. Cincinnati won the series 5-3, shocking the baseball world. But for those who were paying attention, it wasn't just the Reds' skill that won them the championship. It was the White Sox's suspiciously bad play. Almost immediately, rumors of a fix began to circulate. Fans, sports writers, and even rival players couldn't ignore the uncharacteristic mistakes made by the White Sox. How could a team as talented as Chicago fall apart so dramatically? The press began to investigate, and whispers of a conspiracy grew louder. By 1920, the rumors had turned into full-blown accusations. An investigation by sports writers and insiders revealed the dark truth behind the White Sox's collapse. Eddie Cicotte, under mounting pressure, finally confessed to his role in the fix. Shoeless Joe Jackson, too, admitted to receiving money from the gamblers, though he maintained that he had played to win. Jackson's World Series stats seemed to support his claim. He batted .375, hit the only home run of the series, and had 12 hits, more than any other player in the series. Despite Jackson's stellar performance, his involvement in the fix would forever tarnish his legacy. He had accepted $5,000 from the gamblers, a decision that would follow him for the rest of his life. In 1921, the 8 players involved in the fix were put on trial for conspiracy to defraud the public. Remarkably, despite the confessions and mounting evidence, the jury acquitted all of them. But their fate had already been sealed. Baseball had hired a new commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, a former federal judge with a reputation for being tough and uncompromising. Landis wasn't interested in the court's decision. He was determined to clean up the sport and restore its integrity. On August 3, 1921, Landis banned all 8 players from professional baseball for life. His message was clear. No one who conspires to throw a game will ever play in the major leagues again. It didn't matter that they had been acquitted in court. To Landis, their guilt was beyond doubt, and they would never step foot on a baseball field again. For decades, the debate over the Black Sox scandal has continued to rage. Was Shoeless Joe Jackson truly guilty? Should he have been banned from baseball for life despite his stellar performance during the 1919 World Series? Fans and historians remain divided. On one hand, Jackson admitted to taking $5,000 from the gamblers, a decision that sealed his fate. On the other, his stats tell a different story. Batting .375, hitting the only home run of the series, and leading all players with 12 hits. If he was truly playing to lose, how could he have been so dominant on the field? To this day, many argue that Jackson was unaware of the full extent of the fix and that his banishment was too harsh. Calls for his posthumous induction into the Hall of Fame persist, with countless fans believing that his name should be cleared and his legacy restored. But Major League Baseball has stood firm in its decision, and Jackson, along with the 7 other players involved, remains banned from the sport. Beyond Jackson, the Black Sox scandal cast a long shadow over the game of baseball itself. It forced the sport to confront the threat of corruption and led to the establishment of strict anti-gambling rules that continue to shape the game today. The appointment of Kennesaw Mountain Landis as baseball's first commissioner marked a turning point in the sport's history. Landis had one mission: to restore the integrity of baseball. And his lifetime bans of the 8 players sent a clear message. No one, no matter how talented, would be allowed to tarnish the game's reputation. The scandal may be over a century old, but its legacy lives on. Every mention of Shoeless Joe Jackson, every time the phrase Black Sox is uttered, it serves as a reminder of the consequences of betrayal, greed, and the cost of compromising the integrity of the game. The Black Sox scandal didn't just change the lives of those 8 men, it changed baseball forever. What do you think? Was Shoeless Joe Jackson truly guilty, or does he deserve a place in the Hall of Fame? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed diving into this fascinating piece of baseball history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more captivating stories like this. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.